We have an absolutely massive and highly urgent breaking news alert for you right now, coming directly out of the Indian state of Rajasthan, where a completely terrifying and highly destructive massive industrial fire has violently aggressively erupted inside the massive HPCL Pachpadra refinery located in the highly populated Balotra district today. Emergency management officials and heavy industrial safety teams are currently operating on the absolute highest possible level of maximum alert, as incredibly shocking live video footage currently flooding social media platforms shows completely massive, highly destructive, towering flames, violently ripping directly through the highly critical and incredibly expensive massive industrial complex. The sheer absolute magnitude of this completely terrifying industrial disaster is absolutely staggering, because this highly volatile massive chemical emergency actively aggressively completely turned into an absolute massive terrifying struggle for complete physical survival in a matter of incredibly terrifying short seconds, just one single day before the massive world-class facility was officially scheduled to be heavily publicly inaugurated by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when highly terrified local refinery workers and incredibly deeply panicked on-site engineers completely frantically violently scrambled to aggressively, violently, actively seek highly secure physical safety as a completely massive, highly destructive, sudden explosion violently completely ripped directly through the main crude distillation unit and the highly volatile vacuum distillation unit, actively completely launching massive, heavy, dangerous metal fragments and highly toxic chemical debris high into the crowded industrial air. The incredibly violent, extreme industrial disaster completely actively created an absolute, completely terrifying logistical nightmare, as incredibly thick, massive plumes of pitch-black toxic smoke violently, aggressively, completely filled the massive daytime sky, actively, heavily threatening everything directly in its highly destructive, violent path. The massive, highly dangerous, towering columns of completely dark, heavy smoke were actively visibly seen from several massive miles away, completely actively creating widespread massive public panic directly among the deeply terrified local civilian populations residing completely near the massive, heavily fortified industrial borders. Over 20 incredibly massive heavy emergency fire brigade vehicles and highly dedicated specialized industrial firefighting teams were actively, completely, aggressively, completely dispatched directly to the massive chaotic scene, violently, aggressively battling the heavy, treacherous, blazing hot conditions to actively, forcefully, completely suppress the massive, highly dangerous chemical inferno. These incredibly brave, heavy emergency first responders violently, aggressively, heavily deployed massive quantities of highly specialized chemical suppression foam and completely massive high-pressure water cannons directly onto the violently aggressive, towering inferno, actively, desperately attempting to completely, forcefully prevent the incredibly massive, dangerous fire from rapidly, violently, actively spreading completely toward other highly explosive, massive chemical storage tanks completely located directly nearby. The completely terrifying, highly explosive reality of this massive, active petrochemical disaster actively, forcefully, completely forced heavily frantic local emergency officials to completely, violently, deeply evacuate the entire massive facility, completely, strictly, logically moving absolutely all hardworking employees and critical engineering staff directly into highly secure designated safe zones to completely prevent highly massive catastrophic human tragedies. Heavy local law enforcement officers and heavily armed state security personnel actively, completely, violently established massive strict security perimeters completely, deeply surrounding the entire massive blazing compound, actively, forcefully, violently turning away completely terrified civilian onlookers, and completely preventing any highly dangerous, unauthorized physical entry directly into the massive burning industrial disaster zone. But amidst all of this completely massive, terrifying physical destruction and completely blinding, heavy toxic smoke, an absolutely incredible and deeply, profoundly inspiring miracle has completely, officially, actively occurred, because local emergency medical authorities and top government officials are violently, aggressively confirming that absolutely zero human fatalities and zero severe physical injuries have actually completely happened during this massive, terrifying, fiery ordeal. The incredibly swift and completely highly professional immediate response of the brave on-site industrial safety teams actively, successfully, completely allowed all deeply vulnerable workers to completely, strictly
ब्लास्ट हुआ गाड़ी साइड कर दे।
यहाँ तक होगा।
अबे इधर आ जाएगा तू, पता नहीं है। चले
पहले ही कर दिया मोदी से।
उद्घाटन हो गया, मजा हो गया, लोगों को पार्टी